My name is Sarah, and the moment I realized my own mother had been planning to steal my baby didn't happen during some dramatic confrontation or family therapy session. It happened in a hospital room at 3:47 a.m. while I was holding my newborn daughter for the first time, and my mother stood in the doorway with a social worker, claiming I was mentally unstable and unfit to be a parent. Let me back up because the signs were there all along, I just didn't want to see them. 6 months earlier, I sat across from my mom at her perfectly decorated dining table, the one she photographed constantly for her social media, where she played the role of devoted mother and family woman. My husband David squeezed my hand under the table as I took a breath and said the words I'd been nervous to share. "Mom, we're pregnant." I expected tears of joy, hugs, excited planning. Instead, her fork froze halfway to her mouth. Her eyes went wide, not with happiness but with something I couldn't quite place at the time, something that looked almost like panic. "Pregnant," she repeated, her voice flat. "You're sure?" 12 weeks, I said, smiling despite her weird reaction. We wanted to wait until the safe zone to tell everyone. She set her fork down carefully, too carefully, like she was buying time to arrange her face into the right expression. When she finally looked up, she was smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," she said in that sugary tone she used when she was performing for an audience, even though it was just the three of us. "I'm just shocked, that's all. You never mentioned wanting children before." That was a lie, and we both knew it. I'd talked about wanting kids for years, but my mom had this special talent for rewriting history whenever reality didn't match the story she wanted to tell. David shifted beside me. "We're really excited," he said firmly, "and we wanted you to be one of the first to know." My mom's smile tightened. "Of course I'm thrilled. It's just such a big responsibility. Are you sure you're ready, with your career and everything?" There it was, the subtle dig disguised as concern. My career was something she simultaneously bragged about to her friends and used against me in private. I was too focused on work, too ambitious, not nurturing enough. According to her, I'd never quite figured out how to be a proper woman. "We're ready," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We've been planning this." She nodded slowly, then reached across the table to pat my hand. "Well, if you need any help, I'm here. You know I raised 3 children practically alone after your father left." She hadn't raised us alone. She'd had family, friends, and enough alimony to hire help, but she loved playing the martyr. That dinner should have been a red flag, but I was too excited about the pregnancy, too caught up in nursery planning and baby books, to notice how strange her reaction really was. Over the next few weeks, things got weirder. My mom started calling constantly, not to ask how I was feeling or if I needed anything normal, but to share horror stories. Friends whose daughters had postpartum depression so severe they couldn't function, women who regretted having children, articles about maternal mortality rates. "I just want you to be prepared," she'd say sweetly. "Nobody talks about how hard it really is." Then she started showing up unannounced at our apartment. I was in the neighborhood, she'd claim, carrying bags of baby items we hadn't asked for, clothes in sizes that wouldn't fit for months, parenting books with sections highlighted about how first-time mothers always make critical mistakes, a bassinet that she insisted should stay at her house for when you need a break. "Mom, we haven't even set up our own nursery yet," I said one afternoon after she dropped off her 3rd load of supplies. "I know, sweetie, I'm just trying to help. You're going to be so overwhelmed. It's better to have these things ready at my place so you don't have to worry about packing when you need to bring the baby over." "When I need to bring the baby over, not if when." David noticed it too. "She's acting like this is her baby," he said one night after she'd left. "Every conversation she's talking about what she'll do, what she's planning, where the baby will sleep at her house." "She's just excited," I said, but even I didn't believe it anymore. The next red flag came during my baby shower. My friends had planned it, a small gathering with people I actually wanted there. My mom showed up early before anyone else arrived with boxes of decorations. "I thought I'd help set up," she announced, already rearranging the tables my friends had prepared. Within an hour she'd taken over. She changed the games, moved the food, and stationed herself at the center of everything like she was the one having the baby. When it came time to open gifts, she sat next to me, commenting on every single item. "Oh, you won't need that brand of bottles. I'll get you the ones I used." That car seat is nice, but I already bought one for my house. You should return these blankets and get something more practical. My best friend Kate pulled me aside during cake. Is she okay? She whispered. She's acting like she's the grandmother-to-be times 1,000. I know, I muttered. She's always been intense, but this is different. Different how? I didn't have an answer then, but looking back, the word I was searching for was possessive. The breaking point came a few weeks later when I was 7 months pregnant. David and I had finally finished the nursery, pale yellow walls, a beautiful crib his parents had bought us, shelves full of books and stuffed animals. We were exhausted but happy, standing in the doorway admiring our work. Then my mom called. I need you to come over, she said, her voice strange. Right now, it's important. Mom, we just finished the nursery. Can it wait until tomorrow? No, it can't. I need to show you something. The urgency in her voice made my stomach twist. Is everything okay? Are you hurt? Just come, please. David drove us to her house, my anxiety climbing with every mile. When we arrived, she was waiting at the door, practically vibrating with excitement. Come upstairs, she said, grabbing my hand. She led us to the guest room, the one I'd stayed in as a teenager. When she opened the door, I froze. The room had been completely transformed into a nursery. And not just any nursery, an exact replica of the one we'd just finished. Same paint color, same style of furniture, even the same mobile hanging over the crib. Surprise, she said, beaming. I wanted the baby to have a room here too. Isn't it perfect? I copied everything from the photos you sent me. I couldn't speak. David's hand tightened on my shoulder. Mrs. Peterson, he said carefully, this is a lot. It's for when Sarah needs help, she said, not even looking at him. Newborns are exhausting. She'll need to bring the baby here all the time. I wanted it to feel like home. Mom, I finally managed. We appreciate the thought, but this is too much. The baby will have a home with us. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. You don't understand yet because you're not a mother, but you will. You'll see how hard it is, how much you'll need me. And when that happens, everything will be ready here. Have you ever had that moment when someone you love says something that makes your blood run cold? Not because of what they said, but because of what it revealed about what they were really thinking. That night lying in bed, I couldn't shake the image of that room. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't helpful. It was a shrine to a fantasy where my mother was the primary caregiver to my child. She's not just excited, David said quietly in the dark. She's planning something. Planning what? I don't know. But that room, the way she talks about when you'll need her, not if when, it's like she's already decided you're going to fail. His words hit me like ice water. You think she wants me to fail? I think, he said slowly, she needs you to fail, so she can swoop in and be the hero, the perfect grandmother who saved the day when her incompetent daughter couldn't handle motherhood. I wanted to argue to defend her, but I couldn't, because deep down I knew he was right. The last 2 months of my pregnancy were a nightmare. My mom called daily, sometimes multiple times, always with the same themes. How tired I must be, how scared I must feel, how she'd be there to help when things got too hard. You can stay at my house after the birth, she offered more than once. It'll be easier than trying to manage on your own. We'll be fine at home, Mom. You say that now, but wait until you're up all night, sleep-deprived, overwhelmed. You'll wish you'd listened to me. She started telling relatives that I was struggling, that she was worried about me. I found out when my aunt called to check if I was okay because your mother mentioned you've been having a really hard time emotionally. I hadn't been. My pregnancy was textbook normal, but my mom was building a narrative and I was only just starting to realize how dangerous it was. Then at 8.5 months pregnant, I made a discovery that changed everything. I'd gone to my mom's house to pick up some old photo albums she'd promised me. She wasn't home when I arrived, but she told me to let myself in with the spare key. The albums were supposed to be in her office. I found them easily enough, but as I was gathering them, a notebook fell off the shelf. When I picked it up, it fell open to a page covered in my mother's handwriting. Timeline for baby, the header read. My hands started shaking as I scanned the page. Birth S will be exhausted, and emotional, perfect time to establish my role as primary support. Week 1, offer to take night feedings, bond with baby during vulnerable. Hours. Week 2 suggest stay at my house temporarily, easier to care for baby here. Month 1 if S shows any signs of PPD emphasize to doctor, position myself as necessary caregiver. Month 2-3 baby should be comfortable with me as primary attachment figure. There was more detailed plans for how she'd gradually take over more and more of the baby's care, how she'd document any mistakes I made, how she'd build a case for why the baby was better off with her if needed. If needed. At the bottom of the page in capital letters, baby deserves the best. I know how to do this right. I stood there in her office, 8.5 months pregnant, holding proof that my mother had been planning to essentially steal my child from the moment I'd announced my pregnancy. My phone buzzed, a text from her, on my way home, stay for lunch. I took photos of every page in that notebook, then I put it back exactly where I'd found it, grabbed the photo albums and left. When David got home from work that evening, I was sitting on the couch, still in shock. I showed him the photos. His face went white as he read, "Sarah, this is insane. She's documented a plan to take your baby." "I know. We need to do something. Tell someone. A lawyer, a therapist, I don't know, but we can't just pretend we didn't see this." He was right, but who would believe that a sweet grandmother-to-be, the woman who everyone thought was just excited and helpful, had been plotting to systematically undermine her own daughter's motherhood? That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes I saw that notebook, that timeline, those words, baby deserves the best. As if I wasn't the best, as if I was already destined to fail. The thing about narcissistic parents is they don't see their children as separate people. They see them as extensions of themselves, characters in a story where they're always the hero. And if you don't play your assigned role, they'll rewrite the script until you do. My mother's script had me failing at motherhood so she could succeed at grandmotherhood, and she'd been setting the stage for months. But now I knew, and knowing changed everything. The next morning I called a lawyer who specialized in family law. I explained the situation, sent her the photos of the notebook. Her response was careful. "This is concerning," she said, "but it's not illegal to write down thoughts in a private journal. What we need to focus on is protecting your parental rights and documenting everything going forward." She advised me to limit contact with my mother, to keep records of all interactions, and to make sure my medical team knew not to allow her unsupervised access to me or the baby at the hospital. "The good news," she said, "is that you're the legal parent. She has no rights to your child. The bad news is that grandparents can sometimes file for visitation or even custody if they can prove the parents are unfit." "I'm not unfit." "I know, but she's going to try to make it look like you are. Every time you're tired, every time you ask for help, every normal struggle of new parenthood, she's going to document and twist. You need to be prepared for that." I also called my OB and explained the situation. She was horrified. "I'll make a note in your chart," she said, "and we'll make sure the hospital staff knows. When you go into labor, your mother will not be allowed in the delivery room unless you explicitly request it." 2 weeks before my due date, my mother called with an announcement. "I've cleared my schedule for the next 3 months," she said brightly, "so I can be there full-time after the baby arrives." "Mom, we've talked about this. We need time as a family first." "Oh, sweetie, don't be silly. You'll need help. I'm not asking, I'm telling you. A baby is too much for a first-time mother to handle alone." "I won't be alone. I have David." She laughed, actually laughed. "Men are useless with newborns, trust me. You're going to need me there, and I'm going to be there whether you think you want me or not." That phrase, "whether you think you want me or not," told me everything. This wasn't about helping, it was about control. "Mom, I need to go." "Wait, I haven't told you about the schedule I made, when I'll come over, what I'll bring." I hung up. My hands were shaking. David found me on the couch crying for the first time in months. "She's not going to stop," I sobbed. "No matter what I say, no matter what boundaries I set, she's convinced she knows better. She's convinced this baby needs her more than me." "Then we cut her off," he said firmly. "Completely, until after the baby's born and we're settled. She'll lose her mind." "Let her, this is our child, Sarah, not hers, and I'll be damned if I let her anywhere near you or the baby until she understands that." So we did it. We blocked her number. We didn't respond to emails. We warned our friends and family not to give her information about when I went into labor. For 2 weeks there was blessed silence. And then on a Tuesday night at 11:47 p.m, my water broke. David grabbed our hospital bag while I called the doctor. Contractions were already starting, sharp and real, cutting through the fog of adrenaline. We made it to the hospital by 12:30 a.m, and by the time they got me checked in and settled into a delivery room, I was too focused on breathing through the pain to think about anything else. But David was thinking. He pulled the nurse aside and quietly explained the situation with my mother. He showed her the note from my OB, the one that said under no circumstances was my mother to be given access to me or the baby without my explicit verbal consent. The nurse, a woman named Patricia with kind eyes and no-nonsense energy, nodded seriously. Understood. We deal with this more often than you'd think. I'll make sure security knows. If she shows up, they'll handle it. I didn't think she would show up. We'd blocked her, she didn't know I was in labor, there was no way. Except I'd forgotten one crucial detail. My mother had always been terrifyingly good at getting information she wasn't supposed to have. Labor was long, 17 hours of pain that blurred together into one endless cycle of contractions, breathing, pushing, more contractions. David never left my side. He held my hand, fed me ice chips, told me I was strong even when I was screaming that I couldn't do it anymore. And then at 3:33 a.m, after one final burning push that felt like it split me in half, I heard it. The most beautiful sound in the world, my daughter's first cry. They placed her on my chest, this tiny, perfect creature with dark hair and eyes that seemed to look right through me. She was real. She was mine. And in that moment everything else disappeared. The pain, the fear, the months of stress with my mother, all of it evaporated in the face of this overwhelming love. She's perfect, David whispered, tears streaming down his face. Sarah, she's perfect. I couldn't speak. I could only stare at this miracle in my arms and feel my entire world shift on its axis. The nurses cleaned her up, weighed her, did all their checks while I delivered the placenta in a haze of exhaustion and joy. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 20 inches long, healthy, beautiful, ours. They brought her back to me, and I held her while they stitched me up, barely feeling it. She latched onto my breast for the first time, her tiny mouth instinctively knowing what to do, and I felt tears slide down my face. You did it, David said softly, kissing my forehead. I'm so proud of you. That's when Nurse Patricia appeared in the doorway, her expression tight. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, she said carefully, we have a situation. My stomach dropped. What kind of situation? There's a woman in the waiting room claiming to be the baby's grandmother. She's insisting on seeing you and has brought someone with her, a social worker. The room went cold. A social worker, David's voice was sharp. Why would she bring a social worker? Patricia stepped closer, lowering her voice. She's claiming that Mrs. Chen is mentally unstable and shouldn't be alone with the baby. She's asking the social worker to evaluate the situation. I couldn't breathe. Even through the exhaustion, through the hormones flooding my system, through the haze of having just given birth, I understood exactly what was happening. This was her plan, the final step in that notebook timeline. Establish that I was unfit, get professional documentation, position herself as the necessary intervention. She can't do this, I whispered, holding my daughter tighter. She can't. She's not getting in this room, David said, his voice harder than I'd ever heard it. I don't care what she brought or who she brought. Sarah just gave birth. She needs rest, not this insanity. Patricia nodded. I agree, but the social worker is technically required to do a brief check if a concern has been raised. It's protocol, I'm sorry. A concern? I felt hysteria rising in my throat. There is no concern, I'm fine, the baby's fine, my mother is the one who's not fine. I believe you, Patricia said gently, but we have to follow procedure. I can have security keep your mother out, but the social worker needs to speak with you briefly, just to document that there's no issue. David's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Fine, but my mother-in-law stays out there. She doesn't get to see Sarah or the baby. 10 minutes later, a tired-looking woman in her 50s knocked on my door. She introduced herself as Linda, a social worker who'd been contacted by my mother with concerns about my mental state and ability to care for a newborn. I understand this is terrible timing, Linda said, pulling up a chair. And I want to be clear, this is just a welfare check. Your mother claimed you've been showing signs of severe prenatal depression and that she's worried about postpartum psychosis.
Esti.
That's a lie, I said, my voice shaking. I've had a completely normal pregnancy. Ask my doctor. Ask anyone who's actually been around me. The only person who's been acting unstable is her. Linda glanced at her notes. She mentioned you've been isolating yourself, refusing help, making paranoid accusations about her intentions. We set boundaries, David cut in, because she was overstepping, constantly. She built an entire nursery at her house and made a timeline for how she planned to gradually take over caring for our baby. Linda's eyebrows rose. A timeline. I grabbed my phone from the bedside table, hands shaking, and pulled up the photos I'd taken of my mother's notebook. Here, this is what she wrote, this is her plan. Linda took the phone and read, her expression shifting from professional neutrality to visible shock. She scrolled through multiple photos, reading my mother's detailed strategy for undermining my motherhood. Mrs. Chen, she said slowly, this is concerning but not in the way your mother suggested. May I ask, have you had any psychiatric evaluations during your pregnancy? My OBS screened me at every appointment. No depression, no anxiety beyond normal pregnancy worries. I can give you her contact information. Linda made notes. And how are you feeling right now? Exhausted, overwhelmed, terrified that my mother is out there right now trying to take my baby from me. My voice broke. I just gave birth 3 hours ago. All I want is to hold my daughter and rest. Instead, I'm being interrogated because my mother can't accept that this isn't her baby. Linda's expression softened. I understand, and for what it's worth, I don't see any signs of mental instability or unfitness. You seem like a new mother who's appropriately emotional after a major medical event and understandably upset about a family conflict. Relief crashed over me so hard I started crying. So she can't take her, my mother can't take my baby. No, Linda said firmly. She has no legal right to your child, and based on what I'm seeing here, including this timeline she created, I'd actually recommend that you consider limiting her contact going forward. This level of planning to interfere with your parenting is a red flag. She stood up. I'm going to document this visit as unfounded concern. Your mother will be informed that I found no evidence of unfitness or mental instability. I'm also going to note that her behavior, specifically this timeline, raises questions about her respect for appropriate boundaries. Thank you, I whispered. After Linda left, I sat there holding my sleeping daughter, feeling the full weight of what had just happened. My mother had tried to weaponize the system against me. She'd brought a social worker to the hospital where I'd just given birth, armed with lies designed to make me look incompetent, all so she could position herself as the savior. And it had failed. I want her gone, I said to David, not just from the hospital, from our lives completely. He nodded, agreed, I'll talk to security. But before he could leave, there was a commotion in the hallway, raised voices, my mother's voice specifically high-pitched and furious. I have a right to see my grandchild. I'm family, you can't keep me out. Nurse Patricia's calm response. Ma'am, the parents have explicitly stated you're not welcome. You need to leave or we'll call the police. This is ridiculous. My daughter is clearly not in her right mind if she's refusing to see me. The social worker will tell you. The social worker has completed her evaluation and found no concerns. You need to leave. Now. I could hear my mother's breathing, heavy and ragged, even through the door. Then her voice again, lower, more dangerous. She's going to fail. You all think she's fine now, but wait until she's home. Wait until she's sleep-deprived and overwhelmed. She's going to call me begging for help. And when she does, I'll remember this. I'll remember how she kept me from my grandchild. Ma'am, that's enough. Security is on the way. There was a pause, then the sound of footsteps walking away. Fast, angry footsteps that echoed down the hall. David came back into the room, his face pale. She's gone. Security escorted her out. They've flagged her in the system. She can't get back in without your permission. I nodded, unable to speak. My daughter stirred against my chest, making a small sound, and I looked down at her perfect face. I'm sorry, I whispered to her. I'm sorry your grandmother is like this, but I promise you I will never let her make you feel the way she made me feel. I will protect you from this, even if it means she never knows you. The next 2 days in the hospital were peaceful. We had visitors, David's parents, my best friend Kate, a few close friends, but no drama, no surprise appearances. No manipulative phone calls. My mother tried, of course. She sent texts to David's phone since we still had her BL. Long, rambling messages about how hurt she was, how ungrateful I was, how she'd only been trying to help and couldn't believe we'd humiliate her like this. Not once did she apologize. Not once did she acknowledge what she'd done wrong. It was all about how she'd been wronged, how she was the victim. David showed me the messages, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no doubt, just a cold, clear certainty that we'd made the right choice. On the third day, we brought our daughter home, Emma Rose Chen, named after David's grandmother, a woman who'd understood what it meant to love without controlling, to support without smothering. Our apartment felt different with her in it, smaller and bigger at the same time, scarier and more wonderful than I'd imagined. That first week was brutal, exactly as hard as everyone says it is. The sleep deprivation, the constant feeding, the recovery from birth, all of it crashed over us like waves. But we figured it out, together, without my mother's help, without her timeline, without her lurking presence waiting for me to fail. And I didn't fail. Sure, there were moments I cried from exhaustion, moments I didn't know if I was doing anything right, moments I questioned every decision, but that's normal, that's motherhood. It doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're human. 2 weeks after Emma was born, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Sarah, it was my mother-in-law, David's mom. I'm sorry to call like this, but I thought you should know. Your mother contacted me. My stomach tightened. What did she say? She wanted me to convince you to let her see Emma. She cried, told me how heartbroken she was, how she didn't understand what she'd done wrong. There was a pause. Then she asked me to take photos of the baby when I visit you and send them to her secretly. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. I said no, obviously, and I told her that if she really wanted a relationship with her grandchild, she needed to respect your boundaries and maybe get some professional help. She hung up on me. Thank you for telling me. Sarah, there's something else. After she hung up, I started thinking about some of the things she said, about how she knew she could be a better mother to Emma than you could, how she'd raised 3 kids and knew what she was doing, how Emma deserved the best and the best was her. My mother-in-law's voice dropped. Honey, I don't think this is just about being an excited grandmother. I think she genuinely believes that baby is supposed to be hers. I know, I said softly. I found a notebook at her house. She'd been planning this for months. Then you did the right thing keeping her away, and for what it's worth, you're doing an amazing job. I can see it every time I visit. You're exactly the mother Emma needs. After we hung up, I sat in the nursery rocking Emma while she slept. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating her tiny features. She was 2 weeks old, and already I couldn't imagine life without her. My phone buzzed, another unknown number, this time a text. You can't keep her from me forever. I'm her grandmother. I have rights, you'll see, you'll regret this. I blocked the number, then I called our lawyer. She's escalating, I told her. Threatening texts, trying to use my mother-in-law to get information. I need to know what our legal options are. The lawyer was quiet for a moment. With those texts, we can file for a cease and desist. If she continues after that, we can pursue a restraining order. The notebook you found plus the hospital incident plus this harassment creates a pattern that a judge would take seriously. We filed the cease and desist the next day. It was delivered to my mother 3 days later. Her response came within an hour. Not to us, we still had her blocked, but to my brother, who called me immediately. What the hell did you do? He demanded. Mom is hysterical. She's saying you sent her legal threats, that you're trying to cut her out of Emma's life completely. Did she tell you what she did? I asked calmly. She said she tried to visit you in the hospital, and you kicked her out for no reason. That's not what happened. She brought a social worker to the hospital and tried to have me declared unfit so she could take custody of Emma. Silence. She what? I told him everything. The timeline, the duplicate nursery, the hospital ambush. I sent him photos of the notebook pages. I explained the pattern that had been building for months. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. I didn't know, he finally said. She told us you were being hormonal and paranoid, that you were pushing everyone away. I'm not pushing everyone away. I'm protecting my daughter from someone who planned to steal her. That's insane. Yes, I agreed. It is. My brother said he needed time to process. A week later he called back.
I talked to our sister, he saw.
We went through some old stuff, patterns we'd noticed over the years but never really connected. The way Mom always needed to be the center of attention. The way she rewrote stories to make herself the hero. The way she couldn't handle any of us succeeding at something without finding a way to make it about her or undermine it.
Yes.
We believe you and we think you're doing the right thing, for what it's worth. That support, unexpected and overwhelming, made me cry. I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. And I wasn't the villain in my mother's story anymore because I was writing my own story now. 3 months later, my mother made one final attempt. She filed for grandparent visitation rights, claiming I was keeping her from having a relationship with her grandchild without cause. We went to court. I brought the notebook, the timeline, documentation from the hospital, the social worker's report, screenshots of harassing messages, statements from my OB about my mental health during pregnancy. My mother brought tears and stories about being a devoted mother who'd sacrificed everything for her children. The judge looked at the evidence, looked at my mother, looked at me holding 3-month-old Emma, who was happy, healthy, and clearly thriving. "Mrs. Peterson," the judge said, "I'm denying your petition. The evidence shows a pattern of behavior that raises serious concerns about your respect for the parent's authority and your understanding of appropriate boundaries. Unless Mrs. Chen chooses to allow contact, you have no legal right to this child." My mother stood up, her face red. "This is discrimination. I'm being punished for caring too much." "No," the judge said firmly. "You're experiencing the natural consequences of attempting to undermine your daughter's parenting and position yourself as a replacement mother rather than a supportive grandmother. This court recognizes parents' rights to determine what relationships are healthy for their children. Case dismissed." Outside the courthouse, my mother tried one last time. She approached us in the parking lot, her eyes wild. "Please," she begged. "Sarah, please, I just want to know her. I just want to be part of her life." I stopped walking and turned to face her. For months, I'd been afraid of this moment, afraid that seeing her broken and desperate would make me cave, would make me doubt myself. But looking at her now, I didn't feel guilt. I felt sad. Sad for the relationship we could have had if she'd been capable of seeing me as a person instead of a supporting character in her story. Sad for Emma, who would grow up without a grandmother on my side. Sad for my mother, who'd destroyed everything because she couldn't let go of control. "You had a chance to be part of her life," I said quietly. "You could have been a grandmother. Instead, you tried to be her mother. You didn't want to support me, you wanted to replace me. And I will never, ever give you the opportunity to make my daughter feel the way you made me feel. I never made you feel anything but loved. You made me feel like I was never good enough, like everything I did was wrong unless you approved it, like I only had value if I played the role you assigned me." I shifted Emma to my other arm. "I spent 30 years trying to earn your approval. I'm not going to let you spend the next 30 years doing the same thing to her." "So that's it," her voice was shrill. "You're just going to cut me out after everything I've done for you." "You keep saying that, everything you've done for me, but you've never actually asked what I needed from you. You've never respected my choices unless they matched yours. You've never seen me as anything but an extension of yourself." I took a breath, feeling David's hand on my back steadying me. "I'm not cutting you out because I'm cruel or ungrateful. I'm protecting my daughter from the same cycle that damaged me. And maybe, if you ever get professional help and learn what healthy boundaries look like, we can talk. But until then, stay away from us." I turned and walked away. She called after me, her voice breaking into sobs, but I didn't look back. In the car, Emma started fussing. I fed her while David drove, watching the courthouse disappear in the rearview mirror. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. "I really am." That was 8 months ago. Emma is almost a year old now. She's crawling, laughing, starting to pull herself up on furniture. She's surrounded by people who love her, David's parents, my siblings who chose to support us, friends who have become family. My mother tried texting a few more times, sent birthday cards I returned unopened, showed up at my brother's house asking about us until he told her firmly to stop. I hear through the family grapevine that she tells people I'm keeping her grandchild from her out of spite, that I'm vindictive and cruel, that she doesn't understand what she did wrong. And you know what? I'm okay with being the villain in her story, because in my story, the one that matters, I'm the mother who chose her daughter's well-being over her mother's ego. I'm the mother who set boundaries and kept them. I'm the mother who broke the cycle. If you've ever had to choose between the family you were born into and the family you're building, you know how hard it is, how much it costs, how often you second-guess yourself. But here's what I learned: protecting your child from toxic people isn't cruel, it's love, even when those toxic people are your own family, especially then. So if you were in my position, if you found that notebook, if your mother showed up at the hospital with a social worker, if she tried to steal your baby's first moments and make them about her control, what would you do? Would you give her another chance? Would you maintain distance but allow supervised visits? Or would you do what I did and cut ties completely? I made my choice, and every time I look at Emma's face, every time she laughs or reaches for me or falls asleep in my arms, I know it was the right one. My daughter will never wonder if she's good enough. She'll never feel like she has to earn love. She'll never be someone else's second chance at motherhood. She'll just be Emma, loved, secure and free. And that's the best revenge I could ever give my mother, raising a daughter who never doubts she's wanted exactly as she is. When I told my mom I was pregnant, her reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of tears of joy, I saw something darker flash across her face. Over the next months, she built a duplicate nursery at her house, called constantly with horror stories about motherhood, and even made a detailed timeline for how she'd gradually take over my baby's care. But nothing prepared me for what she did at the hospital at 3:47 a.m. when I was holding my newborn daughter for the first time. She showed up with a social worker, claiming I was mentally unstable and unfit to be a parent. This is the story of how my own mother tried to steal my baby, and how I fought back to protect my daughter from the same toxic cycle that had damaged me for 30 years. If you've ever dealt with a controlling parent who couldn't respect boundaries, this story will hit different. Watch until the end to find out how the judge responded when she tried to claim grandparent rights, and what I discovered in her notebook that revealed her entire plan.